meantime, we return to the National Football League, where Joe Burrow and the Bengals are a 6-point road dog in Kansas City on Sunday. Burrow has excelled in this spot, though, in his career. He's 15-3 against the spread, has at least an underdog of 3 points. The Bengals look to bounce back from last week's home loss to the Patriots. Boy, that was embarrassing, wasn't it? But the public thinks this is going to be about the Chiefs. 83% of bets and 80% of money on Kansas City to cover now the 6-point spread against Burrow and the Bengals. All right, back on the desk here with Erin Dolan. I'm curious if you're comfortable backing Burrow, despite what you saw in week 1, kind of leaning into that trend of him as a dog.
No, but I'm also not ready to agree with the public on this one, especially when I see a pie chart like that. Now, the trends you gave obviously are favoring Joe Burrow in this spot, but also remember, Joe Burrow has been really bad to start the season for quite some time. This is nothing new. This isn't just a week 1 fluke where they were able to lose to the Patriots. I mean, Burrow's 1-8 outright and 2-7 against the number in the first 2 weeks of the season in his career. So I really want nothing to do with the spread. I'd rather probably look at some player props in this one. If you look back at game 1, I mean, Ramondre Stevenson absolutely pounded this team on the ground. So it's probably going to be a big Isaiah Pacheco game for me. If you're looking at his rushing attempts, it's at 16.5. You could look at rushing receiving, that's at 87.5. Or you could do longest rush over 15.5. Maybe that's one of my best bets coming at some point. Not to tease that one, but it's going to be a player prop game for me. I want nothing to do with this spread.
All right, player prop game for you. Burrow, again, awesome as a dog, also 3-1 ATS against Mahomes. And how many QBs can say that?
He has owned Mahomes in some fashion, but at the same time, something's off with that Bengals team.
Just got to throw it out there. Probably not comfortable betting on the Bengals, though, after watching them lose to the Patriots.
Wouldn't you say it's the best game on the slate, though? Is this one you're most excited about? It's my favorite one.
Detroit, Tampa Bay is sneaky good for me, too.
Tyler,
This one's up there. It's the 425 game.
I'm trying my hardest.
That was a playoff game last year. Bengals didn't even make the playoffs. All right, let's keep it in the NFL. I don't know how you feel about this game. Maybe it loses some of its luster because Christian McCaffrey is officially out Sunday with the Niners visiting the Vikings. He's dealing with calf and Achilles injuries. Kyle Shanahan said McCaffrey had his worst day of pain on Thursday, and they are now considering an injured reserve stint. Yikes. Back to Joe Fortenbaugh in Vegas. What do you make of this one now with McCaffrey officially out?
I don't think it comes as much of a surprise, given that we had the heads up following the week 1 miss that he was likely going to be out for week 2. And the market seems to agree because mostly everywhere you look, somewhere from 5.5, the Niners as a favorite, down to about 5. We're dealing 4.5, so if you like San Francisco, it's probably the best place to make a bet right now on the 49ers. Just beware. They went to Minnesota last year in a big spot, and they got beat outright. I think the final score was something like 22-17. Brian Flores knows how to game plan for this offense. He's going to bring heavy pressure on Brock Purdy. That's the key in this game. Minnesota's got a legitimate home field advantage with the crowd noise inside that building. Purdy didn't have to worry about that against the Jets on Monday when he was playing at home. This is also the short week early in the season, but with that offensive line on a short week in Minnesota, this game could get a little bit messy. I'd be looking to the dog here plus the points.
All right, Vikings interesting for Fortenbaugh. Not that the McCaffrey news is all that surprising, but officially out for Sunday's matchup against Minnesota. Erin and Tyler back with you, just offering up some sound advice. Let's start in Kansas City, where Chiefs rookie speedster Xavier Worthy had a big debut last Thursday. He became the second rookie this century to have a rushing and receiving touchdown in his debut, joining another Chief, Kareem Hunt. However, Bengals cornerback Cam Taylor-Britt not impressed with Worthy's skill set.
Speed, that's about it. He can run straight, run jet sweeps, and just run straight. He can't do too much else, so that's about it. You like to put your hands on him. He's only 100-something pounds, so if you put hands on him, you'll stop the speed. So basically, get hands on him.
Okay, Erin, Cam Taylor-Britt offering up bulletin board material. So are you feeling a certain type of way now about Worthy props after hearing that?
Well, I also got burnt week 1 with Worthy props, so yes, I'm all for the trash talking. I got trash talked so much for taking his under when the guy had 2 receptions easily went over, depending on where you bet it, of course. But I think in this particular game, I'm going to go down to the longest reception for him, which is at 21.5. Like I had mentioned, he only had 2 receptions last game, which is pretty crazy to think about, and he was coming close to his receiving yards prop. So, yes, look at him. He is doing what he said, running straight very fast, but I got burnt so bad that I'm not going to say to take under on any of his props this week. But, man, was he impressive?
Yeah,
He'll be there for some time.
I think you learned your lesson with Worthy because he's.
I learned my lesson with a lot of people in betting, but Worthy week 1, yes. I did learn my lesson.
He's tied to
You
Patrick
can look it
Mahomes,
up if you want.
And that is a good quarterback to be, obviously the best quarterback to be tied to. Hollywood Brown's not coming back, so I think Cam Taylor-Britt.
That's a big part of this.
So he'll be out there. He's going to get snaps and get opportunities. Cam Taylor-Britt, don't poke the bear, you idiot.
No, I'm all for poking the bear.
Okay, well.
Always poke the bear.
Okay, we'll see what happens to
Get
Cam
it going.
Taylor-Britt and that defense, because I am all about Worthy now. I think he is going to absolutely light up the Bengals secondary, because I think Mahomes and Andy Reid are going to make a point to embarrass Cam Taylor-Britt after he says something like this.
I don't necessarily think it's that deep. I think it's great for our content. I don't think it's that deep.
That's where I'm going. All right, our second player. Jayden Daniels becoming the first QB ever with 80 rushing yards and 2 TDs in his first ever start. Ran 16 times, though, the most since the merger by a QB in his first game. Commanders coach Dan Quinn thinks maybe a little less running going forward.
Certainly not all of those are designed quarterback runs. Right. So I think that's important to say. But, yeah, I think he'd be the first to say the same thing, Scott, to say this is, I had a chance to go rip it to somebody else. Sometimes you can see a rush or a pattern break and there's open space and you go. But, yeah, certainly 18 carries is not the model, that we're looking for, certainly with Brian and Austin and others here. But at the end of it, I do think we'll continue to grow in that spot, but certainly not by design to have that many.
Erin, after hearing that from Coach Quinn, would you be wary of going over rush attempt, rush yard props for Daniels?
I would, but I think this is more of a case of like a rookie quarterback, week 2 franchise quarterback. You're not Josh Allen. Like, you don't need to be doing the most. And you're also going against the Giants. You want to talk about poking the bear? That was me to Giants fans this week. The Giants are not a good team. You saw Sam Darnold and the Vikings put up 28 points. Sam Darnold didn't need to really scramble, run around, do anything crazy. So I would be more inclined to bet an under this week, not even necessarily just based on what he was saying in that sound. Right. But I just think, again, you don't want someone like him to get hurt.
I completely agree with that.
Especially after what we saw last night, which we don't need to get into.
And I completely agree with that, and I understand Dan Quinn wants his quarterback to run less, but I don't think the opportunity is coming in this game. I think Daniels is going to run just as much, if not more, than he did in his first game, because the Giants' defensive line is led by Dexter Lawrence, Ryan Birds, and Kayvon Thibodeau, and the Washington O-line's terrible. He's going to feel pressure immediately, so I think they won't be design runs, but he'll be scrambling to save his life against that D-line of the Giants, which is the only good part about that Giants team.
I'm sure it's like a split-second decision. If you need to run, you're going to run.
And he doesn't have very many
someone who never played quarterback, I just
right now. Good stuff there, and we'll see if we can get some of those T-shirts sold. Market watch back in the NFL, Browns-Jags. Line moving all over the place this week. Open with Jags as a favorite last week, but after the Browns' ugly performance, now Jags a 3-point favorite. Open with the Browns as a favorite, I should say. So it's moved 4 points through 0, now to a field goal with the Jags. An overreaction or not, Erin?
Yeah, this is an overreaction for sure. Look, the Cleveland Browns look terrible against the Dallas Cowboys, but let's keep in mind, the Jags, did they win week 1? No, they lost to the Miami Dolphins. How'd the Dolphins look last night? So I don't think it was that impressive of a week 1 for the Jags for this to move in the manner that it has. This is a really big swing. Now, I'm very aware, Deshaun Watson, 9.4 total QBR, that's correct. 3.8 yards per attempt, 18% on first down percentage. All of this was the lowest in any game of his career. You shouldn't say this, don't think it get any worse, but I truly don't think it get any worse. So I do think this is an overreaction for sure.
Yeah, it seems like a bit of an overreaction to me. I'm not saying it shouldn't be that the Jags are favored, but getting all the way to a field goal seems a bit much. Cleveland still has a really good defense. Like, their defense, even though Dallas hung 33 on them there, was put in bad spots. 7 of those points came on a special team score.
Keep in mind, half these guys didn't even play in the preseason. It's like a preseason game to begin with.
Deshaun Watson was not pretty by any stretch of the imagination, and there's all kinds of stuff going on with that guy.
That's a laugh of I shouldn't comment.
That's a scary situation for the Browns at quarterback with the way he has played ever since he's donned that uniform. I do think it's a bit of an overreaction. All right. Texans and Bears is another matchup we have. Texans opened as a 3.5-point favorite in the look-ahead line, I should say, against Chicago. But after the ugly victory for the Bears in Week 1 and an impressive win by the Texans with that offense, it got bumped up to 6.5, got as high as 7 this morning. Keenan Allen, Roma Dunze, both game-time decisions for the Bears, so perhaps that's factoring in as well. As we look at this market, an overreaction jumping to 6.5?
It feels like a big swing, but I don't necessarily think it's an overreaction. I did expect Caleb Williams to struggle in week 1. He didn't get the interception that I needed, but that's okay. He still struggled, only starting quarterback in week 1 with less than 100 passing yards. Again, rookie, debut. You kind of expect this. I would say it was more impressive, honestly, that the Bears overcame a 17-point deficit without a passing or rushing touchdown. Second largest deficit to overcome in a win with both a pass or touchdown in history. So that's an impressively bad stat, but at the same time, it does feel like a lot of points, but the Texans are the better team. I'd probably lay it. I'm more so going to look at Houston first half minus 3.5. Well, nothing to do with the spread full term, but first half, yeah.
Gotcha. When it got all the way up to 7, I thought it was a bit of an overreaction, but I think settling at 6.5 is just about right. We should keep in mind Chicago, as you pointed out, has a really good defense. Now, this is going to be a much different test on the road in Houston against C.J. Stroud and that offense, but
yeah, much different than Will Levis.
Will Levis in Tennessee at home. So more difficult, no doubt about it.
Not an overreaction.
I don't think it's an overreaction as well. I think this is a good line at 6.5 where it has settled. All right, finally, last week the Eagles, coming off that win in Brazil against the Packers, opened as a 3.5-point favorite for Monday Night Football against Atlanta. After Atlanta's home loss against the Steelers, where they mustered just 10 points, it reopened at 6 and has since moved to 6.5 in favor of your Eagles.
Yeah.
Overreaction or not with this one?
It's an overreaction to some extent. I think it's moved a lot. I was not expecting it to get to 6.5. I don't think this line gets to 7 by any means. But at the same time, as much as Kirk Cousins kind of stunk in week 1, he also stinks in prime time. We know this. He's 3-10 outright and against the number in his career on Monday Night Football. However, 3-1 straight up and against the number since 2020. I think this game screams Kirk Cousins interception. I do think Kellen Moore will be much better than he was in Brazil for this team. The team played on terrible surface, so the Eagles are going to be fine. It's just a matter of 6.5 points is a lot of points.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm an Eagles fan, and it's tough for me to even. As long as Jalen Hurts limits those turnovers, we should be fine.
I want to give Kirk Cousins the benefit of the doubt. Didn't play in the preseason. Looked terrible. Looked immobile. Looked like that Achilles was still bothering him.
Steelers defense is that good, though.
Steelers defense, you're right. That may be one of the best defenses
that.
in the NFL. I think it's a slight overreaction because I think the Falcons will be a bit better, and I do think the Eagles, like we talked about this on that Friday night game, like how much of that game was the ability of no one on defense to be able to get their footing?
Well, they are playing at home. They do have the rest advantage. There's something to be said for the Philly crowd, which I'm trying to decide, should I or should I not be there? So that's more of, should I overreact and go or not?
Eagles should be favored. I just don't know if 6.5. I think it's a bit much slight overreaction.
Might pop up.
We'll figure out the line. Here on ESPN Bet Live with two top minds by my side, ESPN NFL analysts Mina Kimes and Ben Solak with us, as they are every Friday. All right, I'm curious what you two think about this matchup between Kansas City and Cincinnati, what you'll be focusing on. Mina, let's start with you.
Yeah, this is being advertised as Burrow versus Mahomes, but the reality is Joe Burrow is not the one defending Patrick Mahomes, and the defense that is, well, they have struggled to make tackles. We certainly saw that week one against the New England Patriots, who ran all over them. Ramondre Stevenson putting up over 120 yards on the ground, 5th in rushing yards over expected per carry. I think the Chiefs do the same, both on the ground with Isaiah Pacheco and also through the air with Rashee Rice, working that short middle of the field, making the Cincinnati Bengals team try to do what they struggled to do, which is make a tackle.
Yeah, when these two teams played last year, which people forget about because Jake Browning was the quarterback in that game, Mahomes, 67% of his yardage was yards after the catch, right? This Bengals defense, if you don't get Xavier Worthy down on the quick screen, he's going 40 on you. Rashee Rice on the slant, he's going 20 on you. So tackling, a huge part of this game. And with no T. Higgins, you should expect on the other side of the ball, doubles, brackets on Jamar Chase, right? I think this is an easy game for the Chiefs, surprisingly, against one of their rivals in the Bengals. I like Chiefs -6. I like Chiefs to go over, Bengals to go under. I'm all over the Chiefs in this one.
Wow, okay. Well, many quarterbacks like Joe Burrow struggled in week 1, so maybe he shouldn't feel too bad. Teams average just 188.3 pass yards per game in the first week of the season, fewest of any week we've seen in the NFL since 2007. Mina, what do you think caused it, and would you expect it to continue?
There's a few symptoms, I think. One is you have a bunch of rookie quarterbacks playing. Rookie quarterbacks have historically struggled out the gate. You also have some quarterbacks who have been struggling for a while, who are still starting in Deshaun Watson, Bryce Young. But some of this is also structural. I talked about this on NFL Live, but you had a massive uptick in defenses playing too high coverage, essentially forcing quarterbacks like Burrow, to check it down. You also had some quarterbacks scrambling more, which takes away from the passing yardage. There's no one answer, Tyler, but I will say this. I think it's a trend that's going to continue all season long.
Yeah, and when we have season-long trends, we like to be able to bet on them. I don't think this is one that we can, right? 38% of quarterbacks went over their passing yards in week 1 in 2024, but last year it was 32% went over in week 1, and then we ended up at 50% over, 50% under, right? Like, books are going to adjust lines a little bit to account for passing volume and passing explosiveness to go down. So, cool schematic trend, betting trend, probably not so much there.
All right, let me come right back to you, Ben, with this one. Falcons-Eagles line moved all the way up to 6.5 following Atlanta's poor week 1. I believe it opened at 3.5, so significant movement there. Do you think that's too big of an overreaction to what we saw in week 1?
Yeah, so it's always the rule, right? Don't overreact too much to what you saw in week 1. Don't bet week 2 as if week 1 is gospel. In the case of the Atlanta Falcons, with quarterback Kirk Cousins, who could not run play action, who could not go under center, with a run defense that was struggling against Justin Fields, who probably isn't going to throw the football on you. They're really one-dimensional offense, the Steelers. I'm very concerned about the Falcons. They took the biggest hit in my power rankings off of week 1. Now they get an Eagles team that's going to be able to run the ball on them and throw it in the air, punish that single coverage on the outside. I think it's Eagles all day, and I think it's alarm bells in Atlanta.
I share Ben's concerns about this Falcons offense, which was extraordinarily predictable week 1 in terms of their pass splits, based on whether Kirk Cousins was in the gun, which entirely passed, or in pistol, they entirely run. I think their offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson, is going to try to force some balance this week. Maybe have Kirk Cousins throw a little bit more out of pistol, perhaps try some gun runs. But I'm skeptical about whether that'll be that effective, especially since it's not what they've been repping all season. This might take a while, and it might take Kirk Cousins actually getting healthy for them to unleash that play-action passing attack.
All right,